Good morning. You're listening to Insurance Matchmaking, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance. And now, sharing his knowledge, here's your host, Matt Libby.
Good morning. Welcome back to Insurance Matchmaking. I actually said good morning twice last week because I couldn't remember if I'd said good morning. I do have a guest, and before I introduce him, I just kind of wanted to touch base on we are past December 15th now, obviously, because if you're listening to this, whether you're listening to it on the radio or later on YouTube, it's obviously after December 15th, 2025. A lot of people think, the healthcare marketplace open enrollment is over. Well, that's not exactly true. The December 15th deadline is just for a January 1st effective date. We still have a deadline until January 15th to make a selection for February 1st. So I imagine there's some people are and it may be after the first of the year they realize, I didn't open my mail and realize my plan went up this much. One of the things I always have to caution everybody is, yes, we can get you a lower option, but if you're staying with the same insurance company, whatever that premium is for December, you're going to need to pay it. For January, you'll need to pay it. And then if we can get you a lower plan in February, then you'll be there. But the one thing is getting a lot of people, and I don't know if everybody, I think I've caught up with my clients that aren't qualifying for a subsidy anymore because the expanded subsidies went away. But there's still time. We'll be working in January. We'll be working some around the holidays, but we definitely will be taking some extra days off. I am ready for a break, believe me. So anyway, I have Caleb Allen here with Leb Financial. Interesting. I'll let him tell you how the name came about, but how he and I met was we both were sponsors for the Sparta Mom Co., which formerly used to be called MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers. My daughter's in the group, and Caleb's wife has very good friends in the group, and so They did a spotlight on me, and he liked my spotlight, and I go, hey, this guy's in financial. I probably should talk to him. So we got together. He's also a Marine. I'm not going to hold that against him, being the Army guy that I am. But so Caleb, just kind of introduce yourself. I know the history, but tell them how Leb Financial came about.
Well, good morning, Matt. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it. Leb Financial is it's a personal name. My dad called me Leb, short for Caleb, when I was a kid, and that wasn't the main reason. But as I was doing my Bible reading on one occasion, my study Bible had a note that talked about the heart, and it called out that the word Leb is the Hebrew word for heart, which is the center of the person's being, their will, their desires. Yeah, and as my wife and I were discussing, hey, we need a name for this new business that we're getting started with. The idea of the heart was a very key thing, because when I'm working with people, I'm not just trying to help them with the practical matters of their finances.
Right.
I actually care more about helping people with their lives in general, and the heart is where their desires for their lives are. It's where the desires are for how they interact with people, how they interact with God. And so the dual meaning behind the word Leb seemed like the natural fit for Leb Financial.
Right. And I love you mentioned how your faith, definitely plays a part in it. And we are now on a Christian radio station. Originally, when I started doing this program, it was the news talk station. And now it is Grace 107.7, the contemporary Christian music. And so I've gotten some new clients because people, and some of them are listening to the program because they started listening to Grace. They didn't listen to the talk radio. So I got clients that came in that way. Oh no, I wasn't even listening before. When I tuned on when we had a local. Now that we had a local Christian station, another client had actually listened to the talk radio show, but generally didn't listen on the weekends. All the shows would broadcast during the week. Said, but because it was music all the time, and he'd be playing it when he was working, he would be listening to radio. So he still had it on the station when the Saturday programs came on, and actually started listening. So both of them have been the new clients because they've heard my program since it's the switch to grace. And
Oh,
I wasn't sure
interesting.
how it was going to work. When I first moved here to Cookeville 5 years ago, I deal primarily with Medicare. I say, okay, Medicare, we're in a very conservative area. A lot of those people are going to be listening to the talk radio station, and actually I've been doing better since it's been grace. So I'm sure our listeners will appreciate how you take a faith-based approach to the financial counseling. It's you know, hey, we're in it to make a living, but we're not just in it for the money. I think, and that's one of the things that this last week or two, I've just, because coming up on deadlines and people losing their tax credits or just different things going on. It's like, I got to do this for this person. I'm not going to make any money on it, but I got to make sure they're well covered.
Yeah.
And so it's you just have that. You can you're doing the right thing. I always tell my clients, it's like, hey, I can sleep at night. I generally, though, I say I can sleep at night. I'll wake up, though, in the middle of the night. It's one of those things as you get older, it just happens. And a lot of times I can't go back to sleep. But it's not because I feel guilty. I just start thinking, oh, I should have told them this, or I need to make sure I get to this today. And then my mind now my brain is turned on in work mode, and going back to sleep isn't happening.
It's funny how often I'll wake up with thoughts about clients on my mind, and it's like, I need to make sure I tell them about this, or here's a way to phrase it that'll really help them get it.
Right.
And sometimes I'll need to just get up and jot it down. It's too early to text them. Maybe I'll send an email.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll just get up and write it down. It's like that. I need to remember that for later when I reach out to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens a lot in the mornings.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, once my mind starts going, it's on. I think they say that's kind of one of those things, those ADHD kind of traits that, it's like once you turn your mind on, it's on. And I'll come home and have dinner and be trying to watch TV show and go and, I guess I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that because I've slept through the last 30, 40 minutes of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You started to say something there.
Well, I was when you mentioned how it's a faith-based approach to the financial counseling and financial coaching. That's half of it is that it's a faith-based financial coaching, but the other half is it's a finance-initiated Bible coaching.
Yeah.
And Paul was a tent maker, so he made tents. That was how he made a living, was by building things that he would sell to people, and through those sales he would earn a living so that he could serve the people in the community. And the work that I do, I receive payments for doing the financial coaching, and that provides for my living. But what I'm really trying to do is, even for people who aren't clients, I'm constantly reaching out, trying to draw people closer to Christ. And the mission statement for Leb Financial is that Leb Financial exists to lead men and women by demonstrating and teaching biblical money management that inspires confidence and draws them closer to God. And so what that means is everything I'm doing needs to be coherent and cohesive, that it's drawing people to Christ. And so that's why, I have a Bible in a Year reading plan that I personally have been following for several years because a mentor introduced me to it and taught me how important daily scripture reading is, taught me how important it is to read all the scripture, since all scripture is useful and inspired by God and is useful for a number of things.
Actually, it's kind of funny. I just read 1 Timothy this morning.
Oh,
I didn't got to that part.
Yeah.
I think that maybe is in 2 Timothy, but I know it's in Timothy.
Right.
Paul's letter to Timothy. That because we quote that verse a lot.
Right. And we'll take a lot of different angles with that verse, but the one that stood out to me and as related to the Bible in a Year reading plan that I follow is that all scripture is inspired and is useful. And so I don't want to be cherry picking only the books or the chapters or the topics that seem interesting to me at some certain time. I want to have a baseline system where I know I'm reading all scripture, and that creates a perpetual window where the Spirit can speak to me.
Right.
And it's not a replacement for any specific topical studies. I still have my men's group where we do topical or book studies, and we still have Sunday school where we do topical or book studies. And there might be other people where we just come up with something and we start talking about how that's been meaningful to us. All those things are additive on top of my baseline Bible in a Year plan.
Right.
And then I've been introducing that reading plan to people and saying, hey, I do this. Would you like to do it with me? And I find a lot of people are interested in doing it with me because they've had sort of a desire to read more than they've been reading, and they haven't had the structure or the desire or the knowledge of how to do it, or the accountability of someone to do it with, and maybe they're not bold enough to ask someone, hey, would you do this with me and help me be accountable to it?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I'm doing it. If you have been looking for an excuse, here's your excuse. Why don't you do this reading plan? We're coming up on January.
Yeah.
And I've been adding people to, I have a men's only group chat for people who are following this plan with me. And the guys who come into the chat, I'll tell them, hey, if you're planning to start, quote unquote, in the new year, go ahead and begin practicing. Take a running start now into January, so that anything that was going to hinder you or hold you back, you can work through. Sometimes you have to figure out, where am I going to sit when I do my Bible reading? Is it going to be at my during my lunch hour at my desk? Am I going to go out to my car to do it? Am I going to do it in the mornings and sit on the couch, or maybe at the dining room table, or do I want to go sit in the sunroom or the balcony or whatever? Those seem like little decisions, but if you save them all until January 1st and try to figure out the time of day, the place you want to sit, it's gonna slow you down, and it's gonna hamper your ability to be consistent. That's why I tell people, start here in December, begin practicing, get that running start into the new year, so that you're able to be successful with this habit.
Yeah. And that just reminded me, I was watching, a lot of times I'll watch like some YouTubes while I'm eating breakfast that are like my trade focus, and one today was, the annual election period of Medicare ended on December 7th. It always ended December 7th every year, and the guys, when they were recording their podcast, it was December 8th, and it's like everybody's like, okay, we're quit. Hey, we get take the rest of the year off, and then start doing things in January. And I didn't finish the part is about how to plan the financing part of your business, because we'll get a lump sum in January of revenue because all the stuff that we're writing this fall doesn't take effect until January, so we don't get paid on it until January.
Yeah.
Versus, throughout the year we may write a policy that takes effect in 2 weeks. We get paid right away on that. You can't base your year on what you get paid in January, because you're not necessarily going to see that same amount in February. You're definitely not going to see it in March.
Yeah.
Some of it kind of carries over into February. So January and February, we usually get bigger deposits. I've been doing this long enough now. I know that's what, but it's real easy to think, oh, I got all this money, I'm going to do this. And it's like,
the good times are going to continue.
Yeah,
every month will be as big as January
It is
was.
not.
But it was just the bow wave that was building up in front of you.
And make that planning, again, is the financial part of that on yours. But it was you can't wait to January to start planning your year.
That's right.
It's like you've got to be planning it now. I have never been a fan of New Year's resolutions. One of the things I thought of, I've just been so busy. I need to get to the YMCA. I've been having some problems with my knee, so it's like I want to get in the pool so I can get the exercise in and help my knee. And I want to get that started now. I don't want to wait till January 1st. And the other thing is, you wait till January 1st, you maybe can't get the time that you want because everybody's going to the gym. The gym, what do we call them? The gym rats hate January because they're used to going every day to the gym, hitting their machines or whatever, and they can't get on their machines in the first couple of weeks of January because all the New Year's resolutions people are there.
Yeah.
And then after about the middle of January, they're done, and so then the people get back into their routines. I've seen it on Facebook. Oh, gosh, I hate the first week of January.
I think there's a balance with it, too, because people who are consistent in the gym, well, at least, and I go to the Sparta YMCA.
Yeah.
And there's a number of us where we've built friendships through being there consistently with each other. And we know what's going on in each other's lives, and we check up on each other when you're not there. Like, hey, where you been? I haven't seen you for a bit. So it's not that I don't think that we necessarily don't appreciate the new people. Maybe I'm speaking beyond, outside of my scope. But for me personally, if there's a person who's coming to the gym and he's going to begin being consistent, I'm glad to have him there consistently. And I would want to encourage him in that consistency, because consistency is a real important thing.
All right, well, we're up on the first break. I told Caleb it would go quick. We get there before we know it. But when we come back, I've got some things I want to tie into what he was just saying, and then we'll be right back.
Join Habitat Restore at their pop-up donation event every second Saturday of each month at First National Bank in Sparta. The Habitat team will be there ready to go to receive your donations. So don't miss an opportunity to declutter and make a difference at First National Bank in Sparta with the Habitat Restore pop-up donation event every second Saturday of the month.
Looking for a change without really changing? Switch to TriLite Mobile and you get to keep your device, your phone number, or both. If you love it, you can keep it. TriLite Mobile is a better wireless service from Twin Lakes, the people who bring you better internet. With TriLite Mobile, you get the same national coverage as the big guys, but with the friendly, personal attention of a team based right here in the Upper Cumberland. To learn more, call 931-476-2355 or visit twinlakes.net.
And now, back to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby Insurance.
We are back on Insurance Matchmaking. We were talking about New Year's resolutions and people crowding the gym and everything. And one of the things Caleb said, he's like, I still appreciate the people coming in. Hopefully they'll be consistent. And I was thinking it was kind of like church. We've been having a lot of problems lately, parking. And I mentioned I go to Life Church. We have three services on Sunday morning, two at in the main building, and then we have as Pastor Eddie likes to say, the old people service up at the edge. That's at 10, and that's what makes it really awkward because people are coming in for that 10 o'clock service, and the 9 o'clock people are still there. So so the whole so the big end of the parking lot's full, and then we go for our usher meeting. I have to be there a little bit before 10 so we can have our meeting before the service, and there's nowhere to park. So it's kind of a shuttle service. My wife will drop me off at the door so I can go to my meeting, and then she'll wait for parking spots to open up. But you still you're glad people are coming to church. It's like Christmas and Easter that we usually have high attendance, and some of that is people are visiting grandma, and grandma says, well, you're visiting me, we're going to church. So I can remember that growing up, just always seemed that way. So that was one of the things I thought of on that. It was, we have that, and then you got some people that got that attitude of, you're in my pew.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh. I love to tell this story. Back before I moved here, there was an old lady at church we used to go to, and she would do, you're in my seat. And her thing was, her motives were so pure, but she just didn't have that filter. Just like, you're in my seat, or I sit there. And it was like, instead of saying, hey, I usually, and her whole reasoning was, she was old-fashioned. She wore hats to church. And the way the sanctuary was, there was a big pillar. So the pew actually kind of went right in front of that pillar.
So she didn't.
So she would sit in that spot, so her hat was not blocking. I mean, like I said, she had the purest intention, but she did not have the delivery.
The way to communicate it, yeah.
But people used to joke about her because she was one of those that would tell people if they were in her seat. And the thing is, especially because visitors don't know that.
Right.
And that's the worst thing you can do with a visitor is make them feel uncomfortable. Or like these
they're
people
in imposition.
Huh?
Like they're an imposition.
Imposition. These people aren't friendly. Why would I want to go to this church?
Right. Yep.
It's like I've had to adjust. We'd sit on the back row, and because I ushered, so stay by the door and set those seats up. So my family was, for the longest, it was just my wife and I, and then my mother-in-law is now going with us. We've kind of just, but there was a lady that came in kind of early and sat before I could put things down on the seats. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell her she's in my seat. We'll adjust. And so we now have other seats that are our regular seats, and it's fine. Right. I'm still close to the door, but because people, especially they come in late, they want to slide into that back seat. And the old Baptist saying was, you got to get there early to get the back seats. The old phrase, back row Baptist, and the other, people. So, well, we sit in the back so the sinners can sit up front so they're closer to the altar when it's time for the altar call. We did all those little excuses. Yeah. But that's the thing is, remember, people are visiting. Yes, you can have your spot you like to sit in. I know we're creatures of habit, and when you're in school and like high school, you may not have a choice. The teacher says you're sitting here, but when you go to college, or when you go to church, you just generally can pick the seat that you want to sit in. And you make that happen, and that's where you go to. Don't let it ruin your day because somebody got there early. Be glad that somebody's new is there. That's what,
That's right.
Isn't that why we're there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know, and again, you've shared with me, but kind of share your personal journey, how you ended up in Sparta, Tennessee.
Well, when that question comes up, my wife and I give somewhat different angles on answering that.
Yeah.
I was at a Halloween gathering, and the assistant pastor from our church was there, and that question came up, and he pointed out, he's like, wait a second. Because my answer was all about the planning we had gone into it, and my wife put it very short and succinct. She's like, "Oh, God led us here." And he pointed out the difference. And I was like, "Well, now hold on. I think those two go together."
Yeah, right.
Because a man plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. And so we've got to do the planning, because who before building a tower wouldn't count the cost to see if he has enough to finish building? Otherwise, he'd only get halfway up, and then everyone would laugh at him for saying, hey, there's the guy who started to build a tower and can only afford to go halfway up. So we've got to do the planning in advance to make sure that we're being diligent with the resources that God's provided to us.
Mm-hmm.
But we also recognize at no time is the burden fully on our own shoulders, and God is in control of the outcome, but we are meant to be diligent and intentional with the resources he's given to us. So ties into the planning that I did. I'm the planner, you can tell.
Yeah.
As we were preparing to leave active duty, my wife and I had the first opportunity we had ever had to pick where we wanted to live next.
Yeah.
And it was a new decision. We had to figure out, how are we supposed to make a decision like this? Every other time we've lived somewhere, because I was already on active duty when we were married, and so she just moved from where she was and joined me. And then we moved on orders, and then it was like, this is a new thing for us. We don't know how to pick where we're going to live, and we didn't grow up together. We weren't high school sweethearts or anything. We're from different states. And so it was like, well, we don't want to live where your family's from. We don't want to live where my family's from. So where are we going to pick?
Mm-hmm.
So we were living in Hawaii at the time, and we got a babysitter, and we went on an 8-hour hike, beautiful hike up to a mountain ridge overlooking the peninsula of the north eastern peninsula over the island of Oahu, where you can see the highway coming up right up to the mountain, the H3 tunnel. And you can see the Marine Corps base where I lived off in the distance over there. But it takes you, 4 hours up and 4 hours down. So we had a lot of time, just the two of us talking, and we figured out, okay, these are the values that are important to us. And these are how we would say, this is the most important thing. And then after that, this is the next most important. And then after that, this is the next most important. And being the nerd that I am, I translated that conversation into a spreadsheet, assigned numerical weighted values to each of those things. And then I took lists of states from different sources. And, one thing I took was, at the time, I don't know if it's still maintained, but California had a list of states they would not do business with on, their moral grounds. So if it was a state employee who wanted to attend some sort of conference, but it was in this state, they weren't allowed to get funding to go to that state because it was on that list. And I said, well, if California...
So that moved to the top of your list,
exactly,
right?
I was like, well, if California doesn't like them, that's my starting list. I'm going to go with that. So I used a series of things like that, and we applied these weightings, and we came out with, okay, here's our top 3 states to where we might want to move to. And then over time, it evolved. We ended up, at one point, reassigning the weights. My mom had visited us out in Hawaii for Christmas, and we dropped her off at the airport at the end of her trip. And we said, all right, well, we'll see you next year for Christmas, and we don't know where we're going to be. Are we going to come see you, or are you going to come see us? And the place we were looking at the time was Arkansas, and my mom is in Indiana. And we thought, man, that is a solid 2 days of driving for one of us to get together for Christmas.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't want to do that. That's a lot of driving. So we reevaluated our priorities list and increased the importance of proximity to our other family. And so that brought Tennessee to the top of our list. And then with some other research, we picked the eastern half of the state, and then we had real estate agents in the Tri-Cities area down by Chattanooga, and then up here in the Upper Cumberland. And we were very clear with all of them, look, any of these areas will work. I have an agent in each of these spaces. I'm not trying to, mess with you guys. You're not competing with each other except wherever we can find a house. Because it was 2022 that we were trying to find a spot. There was a lot of demand, competition for it. We had 2 houses that did not work out, overbid on one. The other one, I would say it failed the home inspection because we were like, there's no way we're dealing with all that.
Yeah.
And the third house was the one that God had planned for us, and that one went through. The sale price was appropriate, and the inspection turned out well. And so that's how God led us here. And it also happened that as it was in Sparta or around Sparta, and when my wife and I had been doing a sightseeing trip, a leader's recon trip. We left the kids behind and did a road trip through these areas of Tennessee just to get we need boots on the ground to feel what it feels like here. And we were passing from, we had left the Tri-Cities area, come down the Interstate 40 to Crossville, and then taken 70 down through Sparta on our way down to McMinnville. That was because McMinnville was the next place we were going to check out. So Sparta wasn't on our list, but the GPS took us through Sparta, right through the downtown square, and I am focused on the GPS because I know we're still a half hour, 45 minutes away. Why am I off the main road going around the courthouse? I'm focused on the nav, but my wife is looking out. She's heads up in the cockpit. She's looking out this is a neat little town. I really like this. Yeah. Where are we? And that moment stuck with her. And so she always, even though it didn't necessarily weigh on her, we've got to make sure we find a house near Sparta. When that's the one that worked out, we remembered that moment, and it was like a little delight, a little a gift that God had given us. It's oh yeah, I remember that good experience we had driving through there that we didn't plan for. So those are the ways that my deliberate planning and the Lord's guidance work together, in my wife's heart and so forth.
Now you said your mom's in Indiana. Now where's your wife's family?
Well, they're spread out a bit now, but she was from Maryland. That's where her family was as she was growing up. So you're kind of
you're down at the point of the triangle,
right?
So you're still kind of, you're not in between, but you're equally kind of equidistant.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And then I've got a brother in Pennsylvania in the Lancaster area, and my wife has her parents now have a place in St. Augustine along with one of her brothers. Got another brother in Macon, and then her sister. She has one sister who's still in Maryland. But yeah, so we're still kind of central and about equal time driving time. To all of them.
It's almost like I spent a lot of time being stationed in Europe. Europeans think you can go see the the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, and the Golden Gate Bridge in the same day.
Yeah.
Maybe if you take a plane, but that's generally not. But because they're so used to, you can go from Belgium to to Luxembourg to Denmark in just a matter of a few hours, and so you're in another country, you cross borders. I feel it's almost kind of like that being here. We're kind of central to everything. I've had some events that the upline for my insurance agency. We have our hierarchy, and it's in Tupelo, Mississippi. Well, it's basically a 5-hour drive, and there is an airport, but flights are not that steady. So it was you could fly, but you definitely have to get there the day before if you're going to fly. But the last time I went down for one of my couple day conference or trainings there, was I did leave after it got done. We got done about 4 or 5 in the afternoon. I was like, well, I'll be home by 9, 10 o'clock because I'm usually up to then anyway. Just there's no point in spending another night in a hotel. Go ahead and drive home. So that's worked out well. And then other organization I work with is in Indianapolis. So again, it's about 5 hours from here. So both of them are fairly easy drives to get to. And in Nashville, we've had some conference things happen in Nashville. And it's like, and they'll always do them at the most expensive hotel in downtown. And it's
sure, I
can get up early and just drive there, or I can find a cheaper motel down the road and I've done that. It's just too expensive. Some of these hotels that are designed for conferences.
Yeah.
It's man. Now I did have one. I didn't have to pay for the conference. The conference was paid for me, so I did have to pay to stay in the resort in Orlando. So I did do that this past year.
The sacrifices we make for
again,
work.
Orlando, I had a direct flight on Spirit Airlines. I actually enjoyed flying on Spirit, so it wasn't that bad a deal. But I just drove to Nashville, parked my car in the garage, and checked in and got on the plane, flew down there. And the day, when we were done, I got on the plane, flew back, and then, it was an hour drive home.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, we are running up against the clock, and we haven't even talked about the stuff I asked you to come on the show and talk about. That's what I said. It worked out. And as you know, if you've listened to this show, we do pre-record, and we're coming up on the Christmas holidays. So they asked me to go ahead and do, see if I could go ahead and do 2 shows. So that's what we did. So So stay tuned. Tune back in next week. Caleb and I are going to continue, but it's going to be, it'll be another week before the show's aired. But we're going to go into some tips, some kind of, end-of-year planning when it comes to finances. I've been talking about end-of-year stuff for healthcare. We're going to do that more with the insurance. So stay tuned to Grace 1077 and Insurance Matchmaking. And as I always say, remember, at Matt Libby Insurance, we can cover you from head to toe. It doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. And talk to you next week.
You've been listening to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance.